Vinny Eastwood Show. Sundays, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Live on Ground Zero Radio. Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and hermaphrodites. My fellow slaves of the global plantation. The Vinny Eastwood Show is bad news. It's like the news, but so much worse. It's the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood Show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state run by child trafficking Satanists is Vinny's jokes. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another exciting episode of the Vinny Eastwood Show, broadcasting live right here on Ground Zero Radio. I am very grateful to be part of this network. So many cool hosts, such a great app as well. By the way, if you haven't downloaded that Ground Zero Radio app, get your shit together, mate. Like, bro, go to groundzero.radio, right? And you download the app. And you're starting to listen to Ground Zero Radio anywhere, anytime, immediately. It's freaking unbelievably awesome. And I suggest that everybody take advantage of that opportunity. Speaking of taking advantage, because that's what we like to do here on the Vinny Eastwood Show, is I'd like to take the advantage of the opportunity to talk about my sponsors, reopen.nz, who's been sponsoring us since the lockdowns and all of that kind of stuff, which is a directory of anti-mandate, pro-choice, all-inclusive businesses in New Zealand. So go to reopen.nz and add your freedom business today. Would also like to give a little bit of a shout out to holdenhealthcare.com, the naturopathic, nutritional biochemist wizard David Holden, as an emphasis on the care. So if you guys are going through the medical ringer and you get side effect after side effect of medication after medication, you don't seem to be getting well, the body has the ability to heal itself, provided it's being given the right elements to do that. And that's what David Holden specializes in. So go to holdenhealthcare.com. There's a medical disclaimer on that website too. I'd like to thank our patron, Hyro. I'd love to get another patron as well. Are you keen on becoming a Patreon to the Vinny Eastwood Show for like a couple of bucks a month or something like that? We'll give you a shout out on the show when we go through them, just to sweeten the deal a little bit. Very grateful for all of those people who financially support us through KiwiBank and PayPal as well. Now, bear in mind, if you have donated or you're about to donate, there are special rewards for that. I want to actually give you some of my time. So if you want my contact details and that kind of thing, you want to send me a text message, give me a call, or chat on Skype, something like that, just click here for your special rewards. That's on the homepage of the VinnyEastwoodShow.com. That's Vinny with a Y, because it's the most important question, and Eastwood, like, go ahead, make my news. Additionally, I happen to be wearing a River of Lies t-shirt here today, and River of Lies, the episode 1, is actually now on YouTube, unbelievably, because it's been done in such a manner that it can't really be argued with, because it uses the government's own sources, and then the government's own sources, in some cases the exact same source, completely contradicting themselves. It's a great documentary, so I very much encourage everybody to go on YouTube and search for River of Lies episode 1 and check out the documentary that I'm a part of there. Okay, so title of today's show, ladies and gentlemen, is How to Demoralise the Truth Movement. I spent the morning, I had an option. Am I going to go and organise a guest roughly at the last minute and stuff like that? And I decided not to, because a lot of thoughts have been going through my head, and I realised that it's probably not just my head that these thoughts are going through. And that's a decent chunk of demoralisation has been occurring in the global commons of the truth movement. I saw it last week when I read out Winston Montag's memes, him decrying people falling for this assassination attempt and things of that nature. I heard it on Mark Passio this morning talking about how the vast majority of people are in fact bad people. I was talking to some people from some local New Zealand alternative media this morning as well to find out that the New Zealand Loyal political party, which got 1.2% in the last election, which was campaigning on basically a bunch of conspiracy theorists. And when I say conspiracy theorists, I don't mean that as a pejorative. I mean a group of people who are convinced, utterly convinced, and nobody can convince them otherwise, that powerful people who have a lot of influence use their power to maintain and grow that influence. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have coincidence theorists who think that everything just happens by accident. There's no such thing as deception, backroom deals, or lobbying. And at some point in the middle of the 21st century, in the middle of the 20th century rather, the elites of the world got together and just said amongst themselves, you know, gentlemen, I think we've got enough money and power. You know, we just don't need any more. Let's just let humanity have their freedom. You know, no, that's freaking insane. Okay, leopards don't change their spots, as they say. Okay, and thus, coming to the generalized malaise of movements failing and people getting burnt out doing work in alternative media and having no real reprieve from that. I think there's something wrong with all of us, right? What if we're all suffering some form of mental illness at this point, right? Trauma causes mental illness. Have any of you been traumatized? I have, and I know that it's affected my mental well-being, right? And it's the same thing, okay? So let's have a look at this. Let's say we're a bunch of mental cases. All of us in the conspiracy theorist realm are just a bunch of freaking mental cases, all right? Who couldn't get our shit together in a portaloo. And we're up against these incredibly powerful, incredibly influential, very well researched, very studious, very well financed people, if you can call them that. We're who opposes them? You've got to be freaking kidding me. That'll demoralize you. You start talking to anybody in this movement for too long and you start realizing where the holes are in the fabric. Okay, and with Me Too and everybody else, we're all human. We're all flawed. Some of us are psychopathic, right? There are absolutely no bullshit here. There are psychopaths and malignant narcissists operating in the truth movement in the media of your country at the moment. These are probably names that you know, but you don't know who they are. You haven't worked with them. You haven't seen what they do to people. You haven't seen what happens when people come up with problems and try to talk to them about it. Okay? Then this is because psychopaths have a tendency to operate where power and influence concentrate. Okay? You ever have an organization or something like that, they will infiltrate it, take it over, make it whatever. They will use people. They will unappreciatively run them into the ground and use all of their talents and all of their genius in order to enrich themselves. Okay? And you and I, on the other hand, we're different to that. We don't like controlling people, thus we don't like being controlled by other people. So there's a fragile disconnect here within the truth movement, because when I went out as a young activist into the cannabis movement, I thought that because I was part of this movement and something like that, everybody would be watching each other's backs, right? No, because when you stop being this, which is a brainwashed, mind-controlled cult member of society, doing your work, drinking, and watching the sports, and participating in the political process by voting, and so on and so forth. A lot of people still do this stuff today, right? And there's nothing necessarily bad about any of those things, unless they are the only things that you actually devote yourself to. If you're not devoting yourself as well to truth, self-improvement, comprehension of the massive cataclysm of things that are going on simultaneously outside of your consciousness spectrum, then you're kind of wasting your life and you're not a very good person. Okay? Good people sacrifice their time, their comfort, their safety, and even their lives to try and improve mankind's standing. And those people are largely underappreciated, underrepresented. They don't get huge documentaries and Hollywood films made about them. Like I'd still be waiting in the wings for a Hollywood film about, say, Bill Cooper, for example, or Jordan Maxwell, or G. Edward Griffin, or David Icke, right? These guys who have trailblazed for decades before people like me even came on the scene. Right? This is the world that we live in today. Those people are under-recognized, underappreciated. And this goes for all the people behind the scenes as well. Like Mike Sherwin, who produces my show. Mike, I'm sorry, I was underappreciating you, bro. You're freaking amazing, and you're great, and I am so grateful to have you as a producer, bro. The amount of work that you do and the many plates that you've got to spin and juggle and stuff like that. You do that work so I don't have to do it for you. That's great. And I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful to the network. And this comes down to another thing is that people don't feel appreciated. Okay? Let's say you make a video and you get 15 views and maybe one like, but no comments or something of that nature. And that video took you, 4 or 5 hours to make. And you're just starting off. That makes you not feel that appreciated, right? And maybe there's a level here that we need to ascend to the point where, like in Doctor Strange, realizing it's not about you, but also recognizing that you are human. And you do need to be rewarded, you do need to be recognized, you do need to be supported, you do need to be loved. All right, these are basic needs, so that you don't get burnt out and resentful, right? And because that whole mentality that we're talking about here, about everybody else, what everybody else is doing, stop that, okay? It really doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. It's like the song Lion Tamer. If you place a thing in the center of your life that lacks the power to nourish, it will eventually poison everything that you are and destroy you. No one can be the source of your content. It lies within, in the center. So this demoralization of the truth movement that I'm talking about here is personified most strategically by the term doom scrolling. Okay? No attention, no processing, just doom scrolling. You might not have heard the term before. Now, a lot of people don't know this because they haven't done the research into it, the research conducted by the Mayo Clinic into device usage and the effect on the human brain. If you have the brain of somebody who is a heroin addict, for example, and you run a scan, you'll find that there are these neural pathways, right? Let's say there's certain highways within the brain, certain things that carry signals faster than other things because it's deemed essential. That's what happens to the brain of a drug addict. And then let's bear in mind that all drug addicts are people with unresolved trauma in their life. And they're people too, and they shouldn't be talked down upon. Anybody who has an addiction, I don't begrudge you it. This is something that you have to deal with. This is something that you have to process. This is something you have to get over. But I'm not going to judge you for having it, right? Because that would be hypocritical. Now, the other element here in terms of these neural pathway ideas is that when you're doom scrolling or when you're engaging in excessive social media use, very similar effects are being found in the brain scans of people who might be called device junkies. Okay, it's just another form of addiction. And again, these people who are on these devices and doing all of this, and that means you, that means me. Okay, I'm not putting myself on some kind of a pedestal here. I suffer from these same afflictions as everybody else, but I'm trying to understand them. I'm trying to understand them so that I can explain them to people and give them a choice. You know, do you want to change or do you want to not? Do you want to develop yourself or do you want to stay stagnant? Do you want to be depressed or do you want to be challenged? All right, there's two fundamental challenges within our lives. One is challenge itself, and the other is comfort. And the more comfort that you have, the more challenging it's going to be to actually remain comfortable. But the more challenge you have, the easier it is to get comfortable at certain points. Right? It's weird. There's two different brain sections going along here. Now, if we're talking about the demoralization of society, this is getting people to lie. Getting people to lie to themselves. Mark Passio was talking about it earlier this morning. He was talking about how it kills a little bit of your soul every time you lie to yourself. He said that's one of the first rules when an initiate would come into the ancient mystery schools, is that you have to stop lying to yourself and other people, because every time it costs you something. So don't lie to yourself and say that, oh, I'm not smart enough, or I don't know enough to start my own radio show and start informing people about certain things and whatnot. Yes, you are. The fact that you've even become abreast with any of the knowledge that gets put out on networks like these, or Mark Passio show, or David Icke, or whatever, means that you're 100 points above anybody else on the frickin' place of the earth that is running this game. Okay? So frickin' tell people. Tell people in the easiest, least confrontational, most comfortable way possible, which is to do live streaming. Okay? Everybody's capable of it. Look, hold on a second. I'll grab my phone here. All right, and in 3, 2, 1, we're live. It's that difficult. And people they don't have the confidence. They just have the confidence. Okay? Just go ahead and have that. What's the worst that could happen? What's the worst that could happen? Seriously. Have a look at all the people that you've been following on YouTube and so on and so forth for all this years. Yes, stuff has happened to them, but they're still broadcasting. They're still got their stuff together. They're still fighting a cause. Right? You don't have any excuse. You really don't. If they can do it, you can do it, because they're flawed and you're flawed. Right? That, as far as I'm concerned, that makes us equal. The only thing that makes people less equal and divides them is whether or not somebody's actually got experience and has actually been applying themselves. Because there's plenty of people out there in the truth movement who have got no experience and don't apply themselves whatsoever. And basically, they message people like me telling me what I should do. Okay? I'm just like, actually, you should do that, bro. Yes, you should. You know why? Because then you don't abdicate your personal responsibility for saving the human race onto somebody else. Okay? Is that clear? You have a personal responsibility to benefit the human race, not a personal responsibility to tell everybody else who's already doing it to do it better. I mean, the lack of maturity that becomes apparent when I hear a message from somebody who says, you should. Right? Bossing people around, it's like, who do they think they're talking to? How do they think that was going to work out very well? A lack of thought, okay? And this is probably one of the most demoralizing things in the truth movement, is realizing that, like the bulk of humanity, the bulk of the truth movement are also on that spectrum. very, very smart people down one end and really, really stupid people down the other. Just because you know that conspiracy theories are real and stuff like that doesn't automatically make you intelligent, doesn't automatically make you capable of seeing more than other people and what have you. It's like, no, the information's been presented to you and you've just believed it down one end of the spectrum, and the information has been given to you and you've researched into it and you've made sense of it yourself and you've had a look at all of the experts and what they all say and figure out what all the contradictions are before making up your own mind about it so that you could explain it to somebody else very easily. Okay? That is the difference between somebody who's really stupid in the truth movement and somebody who's really smart. Stupid people don't know how to explain things in their own words because they don't actually understand what they're talking about. They don't. They haven't processed the information. This is again what Passio talks about the nature of reality. You have to have the information input, then you've got to process it a little bit, and then you've got to have the information output. Oh, I heard this, and then I thought about it, and now I can explain it to you succinctly, very easily, in my own words. Okay? What topics are you covering in your daily news feed? Are they something that you research further into and then try to translate for other people who may not be abreast to the topic at all? Like, hey, I've done 700 hours of research on this particular thing and I can give it to you in about 5 minutes. All you got to do is have a 5-minute attention span, which is extremely, extremely hard to come by. This is a dying medium. Okay, I'm part of the dinosaur alternative media who still believe in things like talk radio and stuff like that. It's just, there was a reason why talk radio was so popular back in the day. It's because people had a longer attention span and there was a much older population who grew up listening to the radio rather than watching stuff on a phone. So it's very different now. Now, the people who are listening to these things on podcast form, downloading the file to your phone or whatever and listening to it while you're painting a wall or listening to construction or something like that, so that while you're doing something that is, well, fundamentally repetitive, you are actually absorbing greater knowledge and information, right? This is the way that people are capable of contributing to shows like mine just by absorbing them. Okay? You don't realize the feedback loop that actually happens here, do you? That when you watch my show influences you, and you influence the show. Okay? Just by watching it, even without a like, or a dislike, or a comment, or participation in the chat room, you change the show just by having heard it. That's what's so fundamentally important about you, the audience member. Because if you're a member of this audience, you're changing yourself, you're changing the world, and you're changing the thing that you're watching. That is the fundamental difference between people who make things happen and people who don't. Now, the same dynamic is at play when people are, say, for example, headlong into mainstream music, mainstream movies, mainstream video games, and so on and so forth. They're influencing the creators as well, but in a different way. Good morning, Billy TK, who's in the chat, and good morning, mandatory myocarditis Donnelly, Hearts of Source, and TJ Antipass. Hey TJ, long time no see, brother. And again, I'd like to say how much I appreciate everybody who listens to the show and processes some of the things that I've got to say, because I've spent a lot of years trying to talk to people who I thought knew more than me and were smarter than me, just so that I could be able to compress what they know into something that other people would be able to understand. And I think that there's a role here, because when you're in this movement, there is a significant control of social media, to the point where if an event happens, then everybody's going to hear about it, and it'll be the only thing anybody's hearing about for a significant period of time, all right? However long it is to distract your attention for before the next thing distracts your attention, right? That's what happens when you have an assassination attempt, or a Olympic Games, or a 9/11, or a global financial crisis, or a pandemic. Okay? All of these things become the only thing that you can hear, the only thing that you can see. And good morning, Matt Imber, as well, brother. And something tells me that this whole concept that we have of perusing social media comes to a very important crossroads. Okay, you know how language or at least in English language, often derive from words in Latin, and that is ancient. Okay, nobody speaks Latin anymore. It hasn't really been spoken aloud in hundreds of years, and all of our words are actually still composited of this. But you have a look at the people maybe 200 years ago who were philosophers of their day, Sir Francis Bacon or Arthur Schopenhauer, people like that, and the way that they write things, even back to the Revolutionary War, some of the words of the founding fathers that had been transcribed and things of that nature. These are powerful statements, powerful words. They were being grouped together in a very specific manner that made you feel something when you heard them, when you read them. The vast majority of people of the time probably didn't speak like that, probably didn't have the education level or what have you, but even the smartest people of today would struggle to come up with anything as meaningful or powerful as the words of those great elder statesmen and philosophers of yonder year. Because language has been dumbed down. The people have been dumbed down. There's a very specific reason for this. Not only has the education system been corrupted, not only has the politics and news media and all of those things where people are speaking or being heard or whatever, all of that has been dumbed down too. For a very specific reason. If you are incapable of finding the words to describe the thing that enslaves you, you will never be able to get unenslaved. Okay? And those are freaking clunky words to say, innit? You see? So what are you actually up against? Everybody's using terminologies that only just come up. Like, you remember when the pandemic happened and people suddenly started talking about their bubble, right? It was just weird. All these new cult-like terms just come into the thing. How is this happening? Well, the basic mechanism of how to demoralize people, how to control them, how to make them work for you, and when I say you, I mean the ruthless, criminal, sociopathic scumbaggery that run the world, is through classic cult indoctrination techniques. Anybody who has been a parent has probably experienced these cult indoctrination techniques in a form, okay? Anybody who's been to school or a job has probably also experienced these techniques, as well as government departments. Private, public, doesn't matter. They all use these same techniques that I think were probably gleaned from how devoted parents are to their children, and then having a look at the physiological effects and the psychological effects of long-term sleep deprivation, repetition of meaningless tasks, a central authority figure that must be obeyed, a central doctrine that you have to criticize anybody else who even questions it, poor nutrition, bad sleeping, fluorescent lighting. These things are the fundamentals of child rearing, of indoctrinating children at school, of university, of law and medicine. Okay, why is everybody crazy, Vinny? Well, because the world's run by crazy people who are cult leaders. That's why they've indoctrinated everybody to act just as crazy as they are in a proto-crazy kind of manner. All right? Very simple when you think about it. Finally, now I understand. Everybody's a cult member and nobody can really see what they're doing because of their cult-like status. Cult-like belief. Cult-like belief in government. Cult-like belief in their next political figure. Cult-like belief in their next truth movement leader. Cult-like belief in their next movie star who's come out for the truth or something like that. We're all in a cult too, guys. Okay? Most fundamental thing that I learned as a new activist was that everybody's still part of a cult. Just because you say you're for a cause doesn't mean you're actually for the cause over yourself. Okay? Because everything that you've been trained to do, everything that you've been trained to think is still running on rails. There's no deviation for that without new tracks being built. That's why it's so hard for people in the truth movement who are doing the editing and the uploading, the web management, all of those things that they don't get recognized for, all those things that they don't really get as much appreciation for, like as the hosts and things of that nature and the people who are reading the comments often do. These people burn out because they're very underappreciated. And it's the same thing for everybody in the truth movement to a large degree. You've spent thousands and thousands of hours watching documentaries and listening to radio shows and adminning this and moderating that. Dude, the amount of work that you've done just to be nowhere. All right? Knowledge. It's so useless if it doesn't get used. All right? Period. It doesn't matter what you're learning about. If you're not actually using said knowledge, it's a waste of time. That's what people need to realize, is that a lot of the time when you're doing all of this stuff in the truth movement, you're just wasting time. Might as well be playing a video game, bro. Okay? Get your dopamine rush off of that. So, fundamentally, the demoralization of the truth movement comes down to a couple of key aspects. Number one, having an outside looking glass. Okay? You're looking at what everybody else is doing, not what you're doing. Okay? You haven't got your shit together. If you haven't got your shit together, you're damn right you're going to be demoralized, because your room isn't clean. Your bed isn't made. Your kitchen's a mess. Your computer's full of stuff that needs to be put onto hard drives and put back into storage. You've got umpteen projects that you haven't finished, or projects that you did finish that weren't finished properly, that didn't get the appreciation that you would have hoped for, that you could have had if you've just had the time, and so on and so forth. All right, there's umpteen things to be really upset about when you don't have your shit together. And so that's what you've got to do. Those very, very basic things. Everything that surrounds you. Everything that you're looking at. And everything that you're doing. Have you got it together? Or are you spinning your wheels? Okay? Surrounded by your own filth. And just spraying mud on the walls. There's so many people, they want to change, they want to do something, but they think everybody else has to change first. Nope. I'm afraid not. Because looking at what everybody else is doing, if the goal is to get demoralized, you have hit the jackpot. All right, there is no shortage of examples of why you should be having a lot less faith in humanity. No shortage. And you get new examples every day. There was a period of my life where I would watch politicians speak. Okay? I don't do that anymore. I figured it out as a waste of time. Why? Because they're just lying the whole time. Okay? Just lying. It's a waste of my time to listen to lies. Oh, but Vinny, you can correct them and you can analyse them and you can explain that to other people. Yes, but they do more lies every day. That means my full-time job would have to be translating the lies of somebody else while they're doing their full-time job. I'm not getting paid for that. That doesn't give me any appreciation. That doesn't give me any fulfillment. No, bro. Okay? All that's doing is obsessing over what somebody else is doing wrong. And that's a waste of my time. Okay? And you should consider it a waste of yours. What I consider a very important use of my time is figuring out what I'm doing wrong. How can I improve that? Right? That's what's happening. The truth movement's completely forgotten. That this movement didn't start because of people working on other people. This movement started because of people working on themselves. Okay? Everybody who forgets that is going to pay dearly in a very vicious way. You know? I got this drinking game I want to get people to start playing. It's called My Trauma is Bigger Than Your Trauma. I know, that's funny, but there's a way to win the game and a way to lose the game. Okay, so what you do is you have a circle of people who are drinking. And one person starts and they tell you about, their trauma. Whatever it is. However deep, whichever worse trauma that they can get. And everybody else in the circle has to listen. But not just listen, they also have to react. When the person says something really nasty that happened to them, that somebody did to them, you've got to go, oh, bro, no, that's rough, And in so doing, everybody gets their trauma actually listened to and reacted to, as though they weren't the only person ever experiencing it, as if they weren't the only person ever reacting to it, as if they weren't the only person ever having empathic response from other people for it. And in so doing, as you go all the way around the circle, everybody is able to, through laughter, because when everybody's going, you can't help but laugh, it resets the brain. Okay? If I'm telling you something that's intensely traumatic, and I keep telling you about it, your brain is going to stop thinking. Seriously, this is how it works. You start to get traumatized, and that lapses back out of your black and white thinking, your your primate cortex. That does all your analytics, all your math, so on and so forth. It's just information that's processing. But if you've been processing information that's very traumatic, it then slips back into the feeling part of your brain, the mammalian cortex. So you're now getting hurt by this. You're actually getting hurt. Until somebody tells a joke. Okay? And then all of a sudden, as you laugh, the trauma dissipates and your brain resets back into black and white thinking. Okay? And we're going to do an experiment here. And for those of you who are listening live in the chat room, I'd like to hear your responses to this. So what we're going to do is we're going to perform an experiment that may or may not prove the rule. I'm going to tell you something intensely scary and traumatic, followed immediately by something that is not. And the juxtaposition may make you laugh, or at the very least reset your brain so that the horror of what you just heard gets dissipated. Okay, so if you're in the chat room, just let us know your responses to this and we'll read them out afterwards. So here we go. Are you ready? Okay, piece of traumatic information followed by a piece of non-traumatic information. Here we go. Part 1. Her father, when she was 7 years old, was a Freemason and a surgeon. He used a curve blade to cut in between her vagina and her anus and rape the wound. Now over here, we have a fluffy kitten and an even fluffier puppy, and they're best friends, and they're wrestling. Okay, so now you've got those two pieces of information. I'll wait for the responses to the chat. So, did that make you laugh? Did the horror of what you were just hearing suddenly get dissipated a little bit? I mean, it's still in your head. You'll never be able to unhear that. But the horror that you felt at the time got dissipated, didn't it? Just a little bit. So this is how you package poison, is with the cure. The poison is truth. Okay? People might think of somebody ironically talking about, in the field that I'm in, talking about truth as a poison. It's poison. Okay? It doesn't do you right to know, not to think, not to have a feeling, but to know what happens in this world at the lowest and darkest levels. That's not healing information. But you can potentially, with that trauma, expose people to comedy and juxtapositions. So Tim Webb says it was a great example. Thank you for that, bro. And Jamer Funk says, are you a gold medal trauma winner? Response, Kiwi Radio NZ says, ew, it also normalizes dark behavior. In response, empathy is reduced. Are you sure? Because we are still telling you the truth, and then we're putting up something completely different. Now, this is, again, it's not to reduce your empathy, it's to enable you to take on extremely painful, extremely difficult, extremely horrifying information without the subsequent horror that is attached to it, which will traumatize you. All right? When I interviewed a lady about such things, I didn't really speak to anybody between, I don't know, 2 and 3 months. I was locked away in my studio. I didn't want to talk to nobody. Traumatized as hell. Because this lady, Karen, was here for 6 hours, and we did a 3-hour interview during that. But because she wouldn't stop talking about her trauma, it drained the life out of me. Like, literally. Healing other people drains you of your life force if you're unable to process that information. Okay? You have to do things that help to heal yourself if you want to help to heal other people, kind of thing. And ResiTuber says, it's all in the name truth movement. It was created to keep moving the truth whenever anyone got close to it. You know, like shifting the goalposts kind of thing. Well, I'm not sure. Aaron Lewis says, there's a fine line between truth and being controlled opposition. It's hard to tell sometimes. It could be hard to tell if you were never told the difference. Okay, so what do controlled opposition do, and what do people who are telling the truth do? Well, you can't really tell just by how people react to them or what happens to them. For example, there's been plenty of controlled opposition who've been arrested, and plenty of truth people who've been arrested. And then plenty of people in the truth movement who haven't been arrested, who claim that everybody who has been arrested is controlled opposition. And then, of course, they get subsequently arrested and then try to profess to everybody that they're not controlled opposition themselves. You see? So it's the whole idea is to confuse you. Okay? Do I make sense to you? Am I making you feel like, oh, that actually is much less complicated now? That's how you tell that somebody's in the truth movement, because the whole idea behind controlled opposition is to confuse the enemy. This was the reason why the OSS in the 1930s was created, to confuse the enemy. Did they get created in the 80s, maybe the 40s? I forget exactly which, but yeah. They used to hijack trains that were bound for Nazi high command, trains that are full of mail, and take all those envelopes apart, read what was in them, change little details, reseal those envelopes, and put that train back on the tracks and send it on into Nazi high command. They didn't know where their troops were. They didn't know if they could trust the guy down the hall, let alone where the enemy was. all in preparation so that D-Day, the invasion of Europe, could happen while all of the Nazis were running around wondering what the hell was going on. Okay? After World War II was over, the OSS changed their name to the CIA. And their previous objective, to confuse the enemy, they simply changed who the enemy was to us. The entire global consciousness. So again, if you think it's hard to figure out who the controlled opposition are and aren't, listen to your intuition. Does this person say stuff that really makes sense, that really stacks up? Or is this person just talking out a whole bunch of stuff that I don't really understand, and they're not helping me to fully understand it, that they're actually confusing me? The person who's confusing you is the controlled opposition, just in a general kind of way, okay? If you're not giving people the ability to comprehend truthfully what things are happening, what is going on, and what have you, you're doing humanity a disservice. It's terrible, right? Jason Hurd says, part 1 was so horrific that imagining puppies wrestling made me laugh. The laugh was the relief from the trauma. See, there you go. And it was a fluffy kitten and an even fluffier puppy that are best friends, and they're wrestling. Okay? Now, there's going to be another important idea about your brain. You know how on your computer there's a thing called a firewall, so that if unwanted, viruses and stuff like that want to corrupt your hard drive, you've got a defense against it. The brain doesn't have one of those. Everything that is said to you goes immediately in and is processed by your brain. You've got no defenses whatsoever. I could say there is a beautiful woman with very large breasts running along the beach, and you're watching those breasts bounce. Can you see them? Can you see the rhythm? Can you feel it? Okay, you can, because your brain's got no defenses to it. And the same is true with inspiring people and giving people encouragement and so on and so forth. They don't have any defense against it. They don't have any defense against your negativity. If you want to be criticizing people all the time, they don't have any defense against your nastiness, how you betray people behind their backs. They don't have any defense against the lies you tell, the when you swear at people, when you abuse them and call them names. They don't have any defense. One of the most fundamentally untrue things I'd ever heard as a child was, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Bullshit! Words can hurt so badly that people will kill themselves, all right? You'd rather somebody just threw a rock at you. At least that didn't kill you. You'd rather somebody hit you with a stick across the face. At least that didn't kill you. Rather than being abused for ages and ages to the point where you don't have any will to live anymore, okay? So the words that are being used by the truth movement, by the media and things like that, this is identifying who they are. Are you helping people to come to deeper understandings, or are you further confusing them? Okay? That is what's demoralizing the truth movement, is a prevalence of confusion. Adele says to Tim, it's a juxtaposition. We can hold them accountable for breaches of conduct and performance of their contracts, but they also can have diplomatic immunity. And Tim says words equals swords. And I think this is a very important thing. The word meek in the original Greek, which the Bible was translated into, I forget exactly how it works really, but it was said the meek shall inherit the earth. And today, meek means, I'm just going along to get along, I'm just chilled, I'm just nice. No, that's not what it meant originally. It meant somebody who had a very sharp sword and knew exactly how to use it for destruction and kept it sheathed. Okay? That's what we all wish to be. It was King Arthur's knights of the court who had to balance the two elements of being a knight, which was to be a brutal warrior and a meek gentleman. Okay? This is the element that we're actually trying to balance within our psychology and in our daily lives, in terms of being fundamentally alive. Let's say somebody breaks into your house and you don't have the dark side of yourself in control to go and get that person out and use force if necessary. If they won't stop, are you prepared? Right? Most people are completely unprepared. So that's when the government is in full control of them, because if the government broke into their house, there's people in America, God bless them, God bless America, who, when the government comes for their guns, will give it to them, but the bullets first. Okay? Because their spirit has not been broken. They know how to defend themselves, and they will do it against anybody who is trying to take what does not belong to them. That is the difference between a free man and a slave. That is the real fundamental difference, is that when the rubber meets the road, one will defend freedom and the other will cower to tyrants. And it is completely up to you which one you do. People have forgotten this for some reason. And of all the thousands of years of alleged recorded history, goodness knows how much of that history is true or not, there's been countless examples of few who stood up against many of those of the forces for freedom up against the forces of tyranny. And guess what? The forces of freedom don't always prevail. They don't. Evil can win. Evil does win. Evil is winning right now. Why? Because we're so demoralized that we can't find the strength within ourselves to get our shit together and go out and use the only force which is necessary to bring tyrants to bear. The force of verve. The force of words. These things trigger responses in human beings that go out and react like a chemical reaction. And it reminds me, the other day I had an important thought. There's no such thing as biological life. Right? What do you mean, Vinny? There's cells and there's... Yeah, sure. But what are they all based upon? Oh, there's chemical reactions and stuff like that. No, there aren't. It's all electrical. It's all frequency. Okay? Just like circuits in the computer screen. There's pulses and frequency and electricity running through it. It's alive. Okay? Anything that has an electrical system is freaking alive. Even things that don't. I got a t-shirt from 2010, the Vinny Eastwood show on AmericanFreedomRadio.com, The Lighter Side of Genocide. One of my listeners sent me a box of them. And I put that there to remind me of it. Even though that thing is not, living and breathing and walking around and stuff like that, that t-shirt is alive. All the cells and what atoms and things of that nature, they've still got charge. Right? Protons, neutrons, electrons. Everything is alive, but there's no such thing as biological life or mechanical life or something like that. This is just an abstraction that we've put onto it. So, how do we affect life? Is that not the fundamental reason why we're here, to affect life? And there's biological creation of life, what we know, reproduction and so on and so forth. And while very fun at the time, comes with a bunch of inherent responsibilities. Okay, and I think that's how you shape organisms. All electrical life gets shaped and influenced by the frequencies and the other things that are really affecting us. Just a thought that I've been having. There's no actual such thing as biological life. All life is electrical, and even machines are electrical. Therefore, they're life too. Interesting, isn't it? The frequency. This is what David Icke talks about over and over and over again, is the limitation of the human perception. It says that visible light is from infrared all the way to ultraviolet, right? That's the spectrum of visible light, which is a tiny, tiny section of the spectrum of light that exists. So what you're seeing here on this show, or when you look around the room behind you, that's a reflection of the limitation of your perception, because your eyes are only able to perceive visible light. What if outside of visible light there are other things that are there that you can't physically see, and they are having an effect that you might be able to feel, but you might not be able to notice, right? Now, Kiwi Radio NZ asks, back to the point I was talking about earlier about the woman with the boobs. I like boobs, so I'm going back to that. Are we talking about transitioned man-woman with man boobs or organic woman boobs? Lol, difference in my reaction. Lol. Well, it is whatever boobs you see, Ralphie. It is whatever boobs you see. And yeah, is there anything wrong with breasts? Really? At the end of the day? You know, everybody likes them. Even girls do. You know, they like having them. Guys like looking at them. What if we've accidentally come across the solution to the world's problems? Right? The whole idea behind getting the world together is uniting people in common cause. All right? And why would boobies be any different? You can imagine like 50 years from now, there's some old guy going to stand up. Long ago, somebody figured out the way to unite humanity against the darkness of the coming tide was boobies, and these boobies united mankind in such a way they brought us together like two boobies. Just getting the cleavage of humanity into the spectrum light here. Now, sorry, a little bit of a flight of fancy there. You're welcome. By the way, for those imaginative figments of boobies in your head that I've placed there deliberately. Now, that's coming to the end of the show. Speaking of coming, now I'd like to again try to remind people that this is a listener-supported broadcast, and you can subscribe to this broadcast on groundzero.radio. Took me a while to think of that for some reason. Dehydrated, that's why. Groundzero.radio is where you can download the Vinny Eastwood show, and you can subscribe to it, and you'll also get access to Aftermath Media, which is a private chat with just you, the supportive listeners of groundzero.radio, and the hosts from the network. Kiwi Radio NZ says, boobs for president, vote boobs, lol. Glad you are inserting laughter in your show. Oops, I said boobs and inserting them in the same sentence. I mean, there's nothing wrong with boobs and inserting in the same sentence, is there? It kind of just rolls off the tongue. Now, anyway, go to the Vinny Eastwood show.com, ladies and gentlemen, is where you can sign up to support the mission of the Vinny Eastwood show. because in a world so mad, you have to laugh about it or you'll go friggin' nuts. All right? That's the fundamental reason why the Vinny Eastwood Show is here, is to stop you from going fricking nuts. And there's plenty to go nuts about. There's more every day. Listen to the Vinny Eastwood Show and stay sane. Okay? Or at least a quirky version of sane. So support us on Patreon. I really want, come on, one of you, just one of you, just sign up to be a Patreon. Oh, mate. You even get emails and stuff, because sometimes I'll archive the show and a lot of people won't be able to get to see it because they don't get the notifications. The great thing about Patreon is that every time I post it on, and I post every show that I do on the Patreon, is you'll actually get an email reminder from Patreon. That's like the way to join the email list. It's a way to support the show from as little as $1 a month. Okay, $1 a month, and you'll get email reminders every show, and I'll give you a shout out on the broadcast as well. For those of you in New Zealand, I very much want to say thank you very, very much to all the people who support us through Kiwi Bank with your regular automatic payments. They help us pay the bills and buy food. You know, that's also fundamentally important. Some people argue, but Jason Hood says, love your work, Vinny. We appreciate all the effort you make. I'm glad you appreciate it, but that's not the point. Okay? The point is to be inspired by it and to go out and do something with it. All right? Now, if you've been made happier through this broadcast, all right, at the end of a show, all right, at the end of a good show, this is with guests or without, I've noticed a difference. Right? One show I'll come off from a guest and just be like, oh my God, like just exhausted. And then some shows I'll get off with a guest who, even if I've been on them for 3 hours, and I'll be like, I'm like high, right? And that's what a good show is. When you come off and you're feeling lively and you feel like you can get out there and go do something. Yes. All right. Motivated. Inspired, rather. You know, that'd be great. If every episode of the Vinny Eastwood Show we managed to inspire somebody to change a little bit about something about themselves and conduct a little bit of self-improvement, or go out there and build something that was only previously in their head that they can now will into three-dimensional reality so that other people can see it, smell it, taste it, touch it. Okay, that's the whole idea behind art. You have to create things that don't exist in reality until you think of them, and then spend your time willing them into the physical universe. That's your job. That's everybody's frickin' job. And I want you to remember, always think about all the things that you've been through. Think about all the things that have been done to you. And imagine that in an alternate universe, there's a version of you who lost their sense of humour, who lost their soul, who started taking themselves way too seriously. But that's not you. You still got your sense of humour, you still got your intellect, you still got your soul intact, even after all you've been through. And you should be very, very proud of yourself, because that is no small feat. All right? Like a basketball player, because they got very large feet. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to the show today, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you next time at the VinnyEastwoodShow.com. That's Vinny with a Y, because it's the most important question. And Eastwood, like, go ahead, make my news. See you guys.
Attention all Ground Zero fans. Aftermath.media is celebrating our 4-year anniversary with a spectacular deal just for you. Wow! For a limited time, you can get an Aftermath Premium yearly subscription for only $79. That's right, just $79 for a full year of exclusive content, ad-free listening, and premium features. Dive into a world of incredible stories, top-tier journalism, and the best in entertainment. Whether you're a long-time listener or new to Ground Zero, this is the perfect time to join the Aftermath family. Don't miss out on this amazing anniversary special. Visit aftermath.media today and sign up for your Aftermath premium yearly subscription at just $79. But hurry, this offer won't last long. Celebrate with us and elevate your media experience to the next level. Aftermath.media, the ultimate resource for parapolitical and paranormal fans. Visit aftermath.media and subscribe today. That's aftermath.media.
Gentlemen, I brought you here to discuss the Eastwood problem.
It may be necessary to penetrate the Vinny Eastwood show.
The Vinny Eastwood show.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Well, I've been working on a new Vinny scene. I think that might be the kind of penetration we need.
The Vinny Eastwood show. Sundays, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Live on Ground Zero Radio.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and hermaphrodites. My fellow slaves of the global plantation. The Vinny Eastwood show is bad news. It's like the news, but so much worse. It's the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood Show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state run by child trafficking Satanists is Vinny's jokes.
See, this beastly, ghastly show has been exposing our scumbaggery, which we call necessary. Yeah, and as the World Economic Führer, I believe we should give him a little gift with a little card that says Merry Christmas from Santa Claus.
Oh, yeah, we could send something through his windows. Yeah, I've been speaking with Jacinda Ardern that we need to eliminate the threat of Vinny Eastwood.
Why do you say Vinny Eastwood when it's clearly Vinny Eastwood? Absolutely, he's a major impediment to our planet. How are we going to get rid of him? We could poison his water supply. We've done that already. Okay, I'm running out of ideas here. I'm sorry, I've got a lot going on. Klaus Schwab Jr. telling people that I'm some evil overlord.
Oh, that's just not true. You see, we're lifetime actors.
Yes, we play the role, don't we? But I am still glad, even if I am not really the overlord, and I have penetrated all the cabinets of the world, penetration is big for me.
Oh, it's big for me, too. I wouldn't be me if it weren't for the copious quantities of penetration.
Yeah, so thank God my mother's out of the way. Otherwise I never would have been king. Just keep to go on and on. You know, the stress of dealing with this Vinny Eastwood problem is probably what killed her. I mean, she was a very young 96. She was